So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at these three tools. Now, Fluke actually did send these out to me, just so you guys are aware. It doesn't change my opinion of them or anything like that. I'm just going to show you how they work, and then you can see if these would be useful tools for you. But so far, I've been really impressed. I've got a volt alert right here, which basically just tells you if something has voltage going through it. Got a really nice clamp meter, and this one's also really cool. It's called an irradiance meter, and it helps us detect how much power you can get out of your solar panels. So lots of cool tools here to be able to find out how effective the solar is working, and if you're getting proper voltage, how much amps it's producing, all of that stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these to the test and see how well they work. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, the Volt Alert is a tool that I think everybody should have. This is a really simple thing. Basically, we'll just tell you if there's voltage at an outlet or on a circuit or on a device, right? And so here I've got my electrical panel, and all I'm doing is just very lightly touching. See, this wire's got voltage going through it, but it's not showing up here, right? And I can just go through and find out if there's any voltage going through these at all. Now, this breaker right here is the laundry room. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. So I've got the breaker off, and now I touch the wire, and now we can see that there's no voltage going through it at all. This is one of the best ways to find out if there's electricity going through the wire. So if I wanted to work on this light fixture or the light switch or anything like that, I'd be able to test it and know without any question that there is no power to it. It also works at outlets. You see I stick this into the right side of the outlet here, and it'll even work on small outlets like these, where I've got this USB adapter right here, and anywhere where I've got voltage, this will light up. Now, you need to be aware that if you just tap it, it's going to light up. So you want to make sure you're not hitting it in here or anything like that, moving it real quick. Just move it nice and slow, and you'll have a light that stays turned on when using it. Just an easy way to see that there's voltage there. Now, one of the surefire ways to find out how much power a circuit is using is to use a clamp meter. Now, the nice thing about this Fluke clamp meter, this has a skinnier clamp up top, so it's really easy to get in and get around the cable. One of the most common ways this gets used is you can put it around the main line that's coming in, and I can see I'm using 1.7 amps and I'm getting 60 hertz. And this one's getting 9.9 amps. And each one of these is running the two different bus bars that are inside the breaker panel here. So it should be noted that the way that this works is you've got these rows, right? So this is the first row, and this is 120 volts, and this is 120 volts. But because this is connected to two of the rows, I can get 240 volts. So if I only had 120 volt power to my electrical panel, I would only have every other row have it energized. So this one would be on, but this one would be off, and then on and off, and on and off, on and off, all the way down. And that's why you have to have both legs getting power in order to have 240 volt power. Now, for example, this right here is running a sub panel in my basement, so I can see everything that's using power on my sub panel just by going around one of the main cables here. And I can see I'm using 2.1 amps. And so since this is a 240 volt outlet at 2.1 amps, all I have to do is do 240 volts times 2.1, and that's going to give me basically 500 watts of power that's going out through this to run everything in the sub panel. And the same applies to any other circuit. So this one's using 6.3 amps. And that makes a lot of sense because that's the dishwasher, and we're running a load of dishes right now. So in this case, because this is 120 volts, I would do 120 times 6.2 in order to find out how much power it's using, which is somewhere around 800 watts. Now, the reason the wattage really matters is, let's say that dishwasher is going to run for a 1 hour cycle and it's going to use 800 watts consistently. Then I know it's going to consume 0.8 kilowatt hours or 800 watt hours, either from my electricity company or off of my solar generators, which could be the battery or off the solar panels, depending if it's bright and sunny out or if it's at night and I'm just running the load when there's no sun on the solar panels. Now, this is my electric dryer right here, and it uses about 23 amps when it's running. And that's at 240 volts. So it's about 5,000 watts to use this. And so if I have a solar generator set up where at 240 volts I can do 6,000 watts, it's using more than 80% of the total capacity in order to dry the clothes. So realistically, I'd want to use a clothesline, right? That or my propane dryer. We have an Airbnb, and so we do a lot of laundry. Also have lots of people living in the house, so we do a lot of laundry here, and that's why we've got 2 washers and 2 dryers. The question for me is, can I run all of that off of my solar setup? Well, I know I can definitely do the propane setup, and when it comes to heating and cooling, those use the most amount of energy. So if you're using heat, that's electrical heat, it's going to use a ton of energy and it's going to be very difficult to run off of solar. But if you're using natural gas or propane, it's usually only 120 volt power and it's only going to take a couple of amps generally in order to get that heat, which is pretty good. Now on my Delta Pro right here, I've got no loads coming off of it, but I have almost 1400 watts going in. And I can actually check the amps that's going in because these are my solar cables right here. So I can set this to my DC amperage setting and I can clamp it around. This is telling me it's getting 10.9 amps to go through here, actually 11 amps now. So if I really wanted to find out how many volts are going in here, I can take 1390, which is the amount of watts, and divide that by 11 amps, and I'm getting 126.36 volts through this wire in order to make that much input. The only way you can get voltage is by using the probes that connect to the bottom of this and actually touching the wires. But with solar panels, when you first are checking the voltage, you're checking the open circuit voltage, which means that they're not under load. And so you're gonna have a higher voltage than when it's actually being used. So now what I've done is I've got my probes connected here to the bottom of this, and I've set it to the DC voltage setting. Now I'm actually gonna go ahead and disconnect these solar panels. And just to show you, I'm gonna go ahead and put the black on the black cable and the red in the red. And we're getting 142.7 volts. So you can see the volts are much higher when it's open circuit, when it's not under load, than when it's actually being used. So the reason this is important to know is because some people will consider using the voltage parameter that's on the solar panel, that is for when it's operating, which is lower. And so if you connect over 150 volts to this, you could end up damaging it. That's why it's really important to know which specs you're supposed to be using on the solar panel. And that's why we always use VOC or open circuit voltage. And this clamp voltmeter allows us to double check that to make sure we are not putting too many volts into this. So we were almost at 150 volts with the open circuit voltage, but now we're around 120-ish volts with this going in. Now this irradiance meter is actually really, really cool, and it's a tool that I think a lot of people need, but not necessarily everybody. And the person who's really gonna want it is someone who wants to be very, very technical on their solar setup, get the perfect angle at the right time of the year. So maybe you're running some type of solar farm, or you really do need to squeeze every watt out of the solar panels that you can for your off-grid house or off-grid cabin. Maybe it's your RV. A lot of people even do crypto mining using solar panels, and they want to optimize the exact angle of the solar panels and make sure they're getting the best output possible. And that's what this helps us do. So it's got a few different functions. I'm going to go ahead and press and hold this. I'm going to change this to Fahrenheit because I don't understand Celsius completely. And what this is going to do is it's going to tell us the watts per meter squared, which is the unit of measurement used to detect how much power your solar panels can make. And so I'm going to put this directly onto the solar cell. And ideally, at bare minimum, you want to be at 600 watts per meter squared. 800 is really kind of a good average. So if you're above that, you're doing really well. And right here, we're getting 1050 watts per meter squared. What we want to do is we want to click function, and we want to test the angle that the solar panel is sitting to the sun. So I could optimize my solar panels more if I made them even steeper. Right now, we're just about 50 degrees angle. Now, for here in Idaho, I do about 45 degrees year round because during the summer, I'm supposed to be around 22 degrees. And then during the winter, I'm supposed to be around 72 degrees. 45 degrees is about right in the middle. And then that makes sure I never have to worry about adjusting these. I just leave them here and they do their work and they do a pretty good job. And as we can see here, as I go back to the watts per meter squared, I mean, we're getting 1050, which is well above the minimum recommendation. So I'm not overly concerned about tilting these solar panels up, but there are some cool options that are about to come out to the market that will allow me to adjust these panels to the ideal angle in any situation, as well as stow them very easily. So make sure you like and subscribe because once I get those, I'm gonna be doing videos about it and it's gonna be absolutely awesome. But this Fluke tool is really nice. I can see that my solar panels are quite cool at 78 degrees Fahrenheit, a very ideal operating temperature. During the summer, these can easily get over 150, even maybe 200 degrees. They can get extremely hot, especially depending on how close you are to the equator, the color of the cells, how clear the day is, and so on. But this irradiance meter is really really, really handy, and I'm really glad that I got it from Fluke, because now I can always go check all of my solar panels to see how they're performing and set them up properly. So this would have been an incredible tool to have when I did my off-grid cabin to set up my solar panel. If I really wanted to get them set up in an ideal configuration, then this would have been an amazing tool to have, but I didn't have it and I just went with it and it works. So is it absolutely necessary? By no means at all is it necessary, but is it a really cool tool to have, and is it very helpful? Definitely. The other tool that I wish I had from Fluke, and you can get it from other brands as well, but Fluke has a thermal imager, and that's really nice, especially on solar panels, because then you're able to tell if you're getting any hot spots in your solar cells. Or even if you're looking at like a solar generator or an inverter or a battery, you can tell if there's any hot spots in it, which could tell you ahead of time that there's a major issue. Also for just checking where cold air is coming in the house. Or even during the summer, if there's too much hot air leaking in through like a door or a window or something like that, a thermal imager is a really nice tool to be able to check all of that. So I want to thank Fluke for sending these out. These are really good tools. You may not need them, you may need them. The clamp meter is by far the most useful, as well as that volt alert. Those two are really, really helpful. And then especially if you're in the solar industry, or if you're doing solar installs for people, or even just for yourself, this may be a worthwhile investment. Since you're going to be saving on doing an install and saving on your electricity, it could be a worthwhile investment to have one of these tools to make sure you're setting up the panels just right. That way you get the best power production for your needs. So thank you very much for being here. Be prepared. These tools, I'll have links down below if you're interested. You can also go to poweredportablesolar.com if you're interested in solar equipment and solar kits. Thank you so much. Be prepared. See you all in the next video.